The moment those fake HOA cops crashed their spray-painted truck straight through our fence, Grandpa didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't even stand up fast. He just pushed himself out of his rocking chair, cracked his neck, grabbed the shotgun off the porch rail, and said one word that froze every man in that HOA vest. Showtime. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Because to understand why Grandpa was so calm, why he didn't panic when a beat-up HOA SUV came barreling through our property like a drunk bull, you need the backstory. And trust me, this didn't start with the crash. It started 2 weeks earlier. Our cabin sits on the edge of Pine Meadow Ridge. Quiet land, wide sky, no neighbors close enough to bother you. It's been in our family for 3 generations. No HOA, no shared borders, no community rules, which of course made it the #1 target of the Pine Meadow HOA right next door. Their president, Marla Sutter, was the kind of woman who believed clipboards gave her superpowers. She told her board that our land fell under future development expansion limits, which is HOA code for "we want it. Move." Grandpa didn't budge. He didn't even respond to their first letter. The second letter, he burned in the fire pit. By the third, he didn't even bother reading, just tossed it in the chicken pen for bedding. That's when Marla sent her HOA compliance officers. 2 gym bros in black shirts with HOA cop sprayed crooked across their chests. They marched up to the porch like they were kicking down doors in a movie. One said, "Sir, failure to comply with Pine Meadow regulations can result in forced inspection and asset forfeiture." Grandpa blinked once, then he asked, "Who taught you those big words?" They threatened fines. They threatened legal action. They threatened mandatory inspections. Grandpa took a long sip of iced tea, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and said, "Boys, this land has never belonged to anyone but my family. And if your president thinks she can change that, she can come try it herself." They didn't like that answer. Marla liked it even less. 3 days later, one of our neighbors, a good man, not part of the HOA cult, sent me a message. "Marla's planning something, talking about forcing compliance. Get ready." Grandpa didn't get nervous. He got happy. He spent the next evening cleaning his shotgun on the porch, humming an old country tune like he was preparing for a fishing trip. Then, this morning, everything exploded. A black truck with HOA painted across the hood came spinning down the ridge, engine screaming, dust flying behind it. It didn't slow, didn't stop, didn't even try to turn. It plowed straight through our fence, wood shattered, dust shot up like a bomb went off, and 3 HOA cops bailed out like they were storming a battlefield. One had a pistol, one had a baton. One looked like he couldn't believe he signed up for this. Grandpa, he just stood, calm, cold, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. He racked the shotgun, American flag waving behind him in the wind, and the fake cops realized they weren't dealing with an HOA violation. They were dealing with Grandpa. And when Grandpa says showtime, things get real fast. Grandpa didn't shout a warning. He never does. But he gave them one last chance, the kind only a stubborn old man gives, the kind said through grit teeth and decades of military experience. "I'm only going to say this once," Grandpa growled, shotgun leveled. "Turn around and walk off my land." The 2 fake HOA cops who had jumped out of the truck didn't even pretend to listen. They spread out like they had trained for this, pistols raised, moving in low stances like they were starring in a discount action movie. The dust from the crash was still swirling behind them, and the spray-painted HOA truck hissed steam from the radiator. One of the men wiped sweat from his forehead and barked, "Drop the weapon, old man. This is HOA enforcement." Grandpa didn't blink. "Last chance," he said again. "Walk away." The bigger HOA cop spit in the dirt. "Make us." And that was it. The second they tried to rush him, boots pounding across the yard, pistols aimed at his chest, Grandpa squeezed the trigger. The shotgun roared like thunder. The first HOA cop dropped instantly, blasted off his feet, crashing onto his back so hard the ground shook. He was out cold before he even hit the dirt. Limp arms sprawled, gun flying from his hand. His vest did nothing. Grandpa's aim was too close and too clean. The second fake cop tried to veer left, scrambling behind the broken fence for cover, but he wasn't fast enough. Grandpa pumped the shotgun once and fired again. This one screamed as the blast hit his side, spinning him sideways and dropping him onto his knees. His pistol skidded across the yard. He clutched his ribs, gasping, blood sliding between his fingers as he collapsed onto his stomach. "Should have walked away," Grandpa muttered. Dust settled. Silence hit the yard like a punch. 2 fake HOA cops down, one unconscious, one groaning into the dirt, struggling to breathe. The third man, the driver, had never even stepped out. He stood frozen beside the truck door, both hands raised high, eyes wide as saucers. His vest said HOA cop, but he looked more like a child caught stealing candy. Grandpa stepped off the porch and walked toward him slowly, shotgun lowered but still very much ready. The driver shook so violently his vest straps rattled. "I didn't know they were going to do that," he blurted. "Marla said we were just here to scare you. She said the land already belonged to the HOA. She said you were refusing audits. She didn't say anything about guns." Grandpa kept walking. "She sent us," the man cried. "She said we had the right to force compliance. She made us do this." Grandpa stopped 3 feet from him. "Son," he said, voice low, "you drove a truck through my fence." The man's legs buckled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Please, just don't shoot me." I stepped out then, phone already in hand. "Don't worry," I said. "He's done shooting." Grandpa lowered the shotgun. I dialed. 911, we need deputies and EMS. 3 suspects down, 2 shot, 1 critical, all armed. Forced entry, assault, and attempted use of deadly force on private property. The driver sank to his knees, sobbing. He knew exactly what was coming next. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. The sheriff's trucks rolled up the driveway fast, gravel spraying under their tires, lights cutting through the morning fog. I stood at the fence line, waving them in, while Grandpa rested the shotgun on his shoulder like he'd just finished a chore instead of stopping an armed attack. 2 deputies rushed straight to the 2 HOA cops lying in the dirt. One was still wheezing, blood pooling under his vest. The other, the one who fainted after Grandpa hit center mass, wasn't moving at all. "Get EMS up here now!" a deputy shouted. Grandpa just leaned on his boot heel and muttered, "I told him not to raise those pistols." Deputy Ross turned to me. "You said there was a 3rd suspect?" I pointed toward the HOA SUV. The last fake cop, the driver, was sitting on the ground with his hands up, shaking so hard his vest rattled. He didn't even try to run when the deputies grabbed him. He dropped to his knees immediately. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he cried. "Marla told us it was just intimidation. Just get the old man to sign compliance papers. She said nobody would get hurt." Deputy Ross narrowed his eyes. "Marla Sutter, HOA president?" The man nodded rapidly. "She planned everything. She ordered the land takeover. She said she'd back us legally if anything happened." Grandpa spit into the dirt. "Figures. Her bark always sounded faker than her title." EMTs pushed in next, loading the 2-shot HOA cops onto stretchers. One still breathing, groaning in pain. The other covered with a sheet halfway up, oxygen mask useless, chest unmoving. I didn't need the report to know. He wasn't coming back. Deputy Ross radioed the update to dispatch. "Suspect number 2 is non-responsive. Repeat, non-responsive." Grandpa didn't celebrate, didn't smile. He just sat back on the porch step and whispered, "Shoulda listened." An hour later, after statements, photos, evidence bags, and body cam footage, the real hammer finally dropped. 2 unmarked SUVs pulled up, the county investigator and the state police task unit. They headed straight to Marla's house. The driver, HOA cop, still in cuffs, pointed at her front door. She said if we forced them to sign, the HOA could take the land next quarter. She said the fence was blocking future expansion. She said, Grandpa cut him off. "She said a lot of stupid things, son." The deputies dragged him into the cruiser. Across the ridge, we could hear the shouting as officers surrounded Marla's porch. She tried everything, denying, crying, yelling about HOA rights, claiming the cops were harassing her. None of it worked. When they walked her out in cuffs, hair messy, clipboard falling from her hands, the entire neighborhood stood on their porches watching. Charges hit fast later that evening. Conspiracy to commit armed trespass, ordering a violent enforcement action, impersonation of law enforcement, attempted land seizure, liability in the death of her own HOA cop. She received 43 years in state prison, $150,000 in fines, and $80,000 restitution. The HOA was dissolved permanently. The one Grandpa shot and survived. He spent 7 weeks in the hospital, underwent 2 surgeries, and received 10 years in prison for armed trespass, impersonation of law enforcement, and attempted assault. The driver who confessed, because he cooperated fully, turned over messages, and testified against Marla, he took a plea deal. He got 4 years in prison plus 3 years probation. And Grandpa? He was back in his rocking chair by dinner. He looked at me, grinned, and said, "And that's how you handle folks who think a vest makes them invincible. What do you think, folks? Did Grandpa do the right thing by taking down that HOA cop? What would you have done if it happened on your land?" Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. The end.